Hello and welcome to the Retail Podcast. Now, I've had the pleasure of seeing Keith. Actually, it was I think last year at Shop Talk Spring when Microsoft had a room to one of the sides, and you were one of the speakers there, Keith. And for full disclosure, I have known Keith from my previous life at Microsoft, but that shouldn't stop us talking about some of the awesome things that I know Keith has been traveling the world telling people about what Microsoft is doing. But Keith, for those people who don't have that intimate knowledge of who you are and what you do, how about you tell us who you are and what you do at Microsoft?
Of course. And first of all, thank you for Alex for having me on the Retail Podcast. So excited to be here. I grew up in retail. I spent 27 years working for Gap. It's in my blood. So I love having retail conversations. But for the rest of you, I am the vice president of the worldwide retail and consumer goods industry team at Microsoft. And our role is to work with our top retail and consumer goods customers globally. We are all ex-industry folks. I always call us the great translators of customer business problems into ways that Microsoft technology and Microsoft partners can help solve those problems. So thanks for having me.
And I think it's a testament to how well Microsoft has grown within the retail community, how your team has basically been able to address those major issues, and what a time it is for those major issues. So, I mean, I'm really curious. You meet executives day in, day out. I know. I'm surprised you're at home, to be honest, right? You're not. It's at an airport somewhere.
Yeah.
What's the thing that's top of mind right now? What are people coming to you and talking to you about, or wanting to talk to you about?
I mean, it's really about agentic AI. I mean, the pace at which this technology is changing and the importance that executives realize that it can have on their business is probably unparalleled than any other technology that I've ever seen. So they really want to understand how can they uniquely adopt these capabilities to reduce costs, to give better customer experiences, to build a more agile supply chain, and honestly, make use of the incredible value of data that they sit upon. And retailers have an incredible amount of data, and for years they generate data, but they haven't been able to really unlock the value. So with generative AI, agentic AI, they're seeing finally this uniqueness of how they can take that competitive advantage and put it to work to change and transform their organizations.
If you don't mind, if we do like a quick 101 on what agentic is, because I think sometimes, I mean, it was sort of the on stage at Shop Talk this year, Shop Talk Spring.
Yeah.
It was like, agentic. This just from the person who's in data and AI. You tell us, what is agentic AI?
Yeah, and I'll start back from when generative AI kind of first came to the market with GPT, which was this natural language interface, which you could ask questions, generate content. And that's where we started. And it taught us all how to have the power of the prompt, right? The output was only as good as the input. And we all had to learn how to do these inputs. So at Microsoft, we took that capability and started launching Copilots. And Copilots were the ways you could access your data. It's the way you could help generate that first draft of an email. And that's really where we started. Now you layer on agentic. And the good news is we believe Copilot is the UI for all AI. So the way we will communicate with agents in the future is the same way we've been communicating in the last year and a half by using prompts. But agents now can do more than where we started. So the first thing is more about retrieval, going out and finding a piece of information and bringing that back to you. You're still directing it using natural language. Then it will move to tasks, so performing a task on your behalf. So I think about the marketing function, and every campaign starts with a brief. And we used to use Copilots to write that first draft of the brief. Now we can have an agent write the first draft of the brief. And once we build confidence in that agent, over time, we will see those agents act autonomously and start to generate briefs on their own based on the insights the agents are seeing in the business. And that is really the unlock of value, because now the human intervention is still always going to be there, but it will be significantly less than it is today, which means we as humans we'll be able to do higher level thinking, think more strategically, and take a lot of that kind of lower level work like brief generation and business insight, analysis. The agents will be doing that on our behalf and surfacing those insights and recommendations to the humans. And we could just say, yep, keep moving forward. So that is really going to change the game in terms of humans and agents working alongside of each other.
I know Satya, maybe 1 month or 2 months ago, he gave an interview where he said it was the death. I can't remember, the death of SaaS, or SaaS is gone, or I don't know. I'm just curious, was that like a soundbite someone took, or is that genuinely how Microsoft is actually seeing it? Because you have so many products underneath your agentic, just from a Microsoft perspective.
Yeah.
If I'm a Microsoft customer.
And in the spirit of that comment is around, if you think about the number of business applications that we use to do our jobs every day. So if you are in a marketing function, you probably have some data that's sitting in Excel. You have some data that's sitting in some type of web analytics tool. You have other data sets that are sitting in your advertising tools. And all of those are individual business applications that you're going in and out of every day to gather data so you can do some analysis, potentially in a fourth tool like Excel.
Yeah.
And what we believe is that agents will now be the systems going in and interacting with that. So we don't have to do that any longer. And we'll simply use natural language as our communication and UI through a Copilot. So you no longer have to go in and out of all of these different business applications to get your insights. The agents will be doing that on our behalf, and we'll just be asking questions. And it doesn't matter where the data sits any longer, right? It doesn't matter if it's in this tool or that tool. As long as you trust the data, as long as the data is secure and compliant, then we'll let the agents do that work on our behalf. So I think the spirit of that is more about natural language will be the UI through a Copilot, which how we'll start to interact with disparate data sources across the entire company.
Yeah. I mean, that makes perfect sense. So thank you for
of course,
clarifying that. I remember from days gone by, we used to talk about retail operating at two speeds in terms of, almost people that have structured the data, people who have spent time, energy, money, and effort over the years getting some form of structured data. And then you've got this other sort of wheelhouse of retailers that haven't done anything and everything lives in silos. I'm just curious. I guess this question breaks into a couple of points. I'd love to know, if I'm a Microsoft customer and I sit in those two worlds, does agentic AI actually help me, or no, sorry, you still need to get your data into some order? That's the first question. And then if I'm not a Microsoft customer, but I'm sat here listening going, holy cow, this really sounds like, I'll be with the dinosaurs if I'm not going ahead. I'm just, where do you start? What does it look like?
Well, I love that we're having a data conversation, because I always say every generative AI conversation always leads to a data conversation.
You can't have one with the other, right?
You can. And you said it, Alex, like retailers traditionally have siloed data. It's just how they've been built. Many started as brick and mortar and built an entire organization and tech stack around that. Then they launched eCommerce, and that was a different data set. Maybe they went into a different model or wholesale, whatever. But the disparate data silos have been a challenge in the industry. And for years, you're right, many retailers have been working to bring this data together. It's hard, it's expensive, it's slow, it's really a process. And what we're seeing now is we've launched a data platform at Microsoft called Fabric that is less about breaking down the silos. It's like, leave the data where it is. We can just help you extract what you need so you can build that first AI use case. And I'd say what we're seeing in the industry is this, like, I've got to get my data house in order before I can even start. And yes, that's true, but we have ways to help you fast track that. And that's where we're spending a lot of time with our customers today is, let's pick a use case. Let's look at the data sources that drive that particular use case. Let's unlock those first. Let's feel good about the data. Let's make sure it's secure and compliant. And then let's launch a use case. And I think that has been actually one of the barriers we've seen. We've seen a lot of our customers launch a lot of POCs last year, but they've kind of got stuck in this pilot purgatory where they haven't been able to move to scale. And we really want to help them take those use cases to scale. And the data unlock is key to that.
I mean, that's a wonderful segue in terms of, obviously we can dwell on the whole data and AI element, but I can, on the second speed where people are moving at blistering speeds, what are some of the use cases that have really sort of impressed you on your travels around the world?
Well, there's two that we're seeing a lot of traction. I mean, there's many, but I'll talk about two. And I like to talk about these two in conjunction because one of my roles many, many years ago at Gap was when I first started, I was a sales associate. It was my first job. I was in high school and I was folding jeans and I was, I had to learn everything about our products. We had this printed manual and we studied it every season so I could talk about features and benefits. But we didn't sell very much. It was jeans and t-shirts and sweaters. It was relatively easy. But I think about the complex nature of the sales associate today in retail and some of the products that customers offer. And how do you learn everything about all your products in a confident way where you can just help a customer on the sales floor? And I've always said, retail brick and mortar is very service rich, but very data poor. And this is where Agentic AI is going to help bring the necessary data into the fingertips to the associate at the moment they need it, which is the moment that matters with that customer. And I'll tell you a great customer story with MediaMarktSaturn. If you don't know them, they're a retailer in Germany. They carry a very broad range of highly complex and very similar products across many brands. And they've launched this My Buddy in my ear Copilot that is a on-demand, basically phone a friend to ask a product question and have it answered in your ear while you're working live with the customer. And it really is changing the game of how they can answer questions think about, big screen televisions. I have 5 of them that look very similar. They're different brands. The price point's very similar. How do I explain to a customer what the differences are? So My Buddy has been a way to help bring that information into the frontline worker at the moment they need it. So bringing that data along with the service. Now I'm going to take you to the e-commerce world. And that was a role I also had at Gap. I got to run the e-commerce business for a while. And you kind of have the opposite problem. It's actually very data rich, right? Data is just a click away on the web, but it's very service poor. There's no one there. You're kind of self-guided, right? And e-commerce hasn't even changed very much in 20 years. You've got your navigation across the top, some categories down the left, your search box, but that's kind of it. So conversational commerce is changing how customers solve problems. So if you're trying to throw a World Cup watch party for 10 friends, what should I buy? Well, you might need drinks, you might need snacks, you might need a large screen television and a great sound system. So companies like Walmart are bringing that type of conversational commerce experience to the web. And what they're seeing is it's their customers are moving from this kind of scroll-based shopping to goal-based shopping. And we're seeing other brands launch this, and we're seeing increases in basket size. We're seeing speed through checkout, which are all great signal that consumers are engaging on this. And they're finally able to shop by solving their real problem versus kind of searching for things. So those are two of my favorites and that we're seeing today.
And so just to sort of understand that in terms of the Walmart use case that you were saying, you were talking about there. So just so I've got it clear in my head, I'm having a barbecue. Is that me, instead of typing with the e-commerce page or site, I'm talking to it? Is that
it's both?
Can you just
it's right. Okay, you're actually seeing not only, and now they haven't launched this yet, but we're actually seeing multimodal, where you're saying, all right, I've got this hiking shoe. I want something just like it, and you're holding it up to the camera, and you have an agent behind that camera who's recognizing that and comparing that to your product catalog. So it's text, it's voice, and very soon you'll start to see multimodal commerce where you as a user can interact with different ways that are most comfortable to you and helpful. So where Walmart is starting right now is they've added more conversation to their search, but will eventually move to a full conversational commerce experience. Other examples are Bath and Body Works in the US has launched full conversational commerce, where you can literally ask a natural language question around, I'm looking for a gift for Mother's Day. What ideas do you have? I mean,
Yeah.
something like you ask a sales associate in the physical store.
I mean, that sounds a little bit like, because I saw the CEO founder of Perplexity sort of saying that's what they're trying to build or building or training their models to do. But obviously, as a retailer, I want to own and have as much control of that. Why would I want I mean, obviously, I'll be open to all channels, but why would I want someone else to have that data on my business? So that makes so much sense, because I remember
That point on data is an important one, because what we haven't talked about in the case of conversational commerce, imagine if you're a fashion retailer and you offer that experience and a woman comes and types in, I'm going to a wedding in Greece in June. Can you suggest an outfit?
Yeah, of course.
And now as a marketer, I now know it's early May and next month you're going to Greece in June. I've got some real context to start marketing to you about, well, here are some great items you should buy for sightseeing while you're in Greece. And have you thought about a swimsuit for the beach in addition to the outfit we recommended for the wedding you're going to be attending? So you could start to see how the data capture of conversational commerce is very strategic for retailers, because I'm getting more context about you as a shopper. I can append that back to your customer data profile so I can use that in the future. So it's really opening up this opportunity for true personalization that we haven't seen before. And I think that's another unlock. It's not just the existing customer experience that we're going to see, but it's this incredible data capture that's going to come out of it.
Yeah, and it makes so much sense. What do you see as the blocker? What's the barrier? If you were going to do a cheat sheet, what's holding people back?
I think there's a few things. I think one is we talked about data. Is like, how do I start to think about my data strategically? And this isn't the CIO's problem. This is the CEO and the executive leadership team. Is a retailer's data is very strategic, because it's incredible about their customer, about their products. It's unique to them. So there's that. There's the second part is, how do I start to get off and running with a use case? And part of that is assigning some business value. So we do spend a lot of time with our customers, helping them prioritize use cases around business values. They know which ones that are going to, offer the most cost savings or revenue uplift, whatever the KPIs are they're trying to drive. So I think that's a second. A third is organizationally. These are going to change the way we work, right?
Right.
And if you've had a chance to use a Copilot every day, I know I do in my job. I have to change the way I work every day, because I now have a Copilot that I can go to first to ask questions and summarize my emails and tell me what I missed when I was out last week on vacation. That's a very different way of working than I used to. So it's going to change the way teams work together. It's going to change the way functions work. So I think that kind of cultural change and organizational change is also another one.
It touches on, in terms of, you were talking about this bimodal or, trimodal in terms of voice, text and image. Yeah. In terms of when you look at the future, then, I don't know if you talk about quantum computing and the chip, but forgetting that for 1 second, practically, when you then think about the future of retail, it feels like you're describing this sort of multi-sensory e-commerce world, right? Is that where we're going?
But I think it's a world where shoppers are finally going to get the level of service in stores that they crave. And I think us frontline workers are finally going to get the data that they want at the moment that matters. It's going to help their jobs be more enjoyable. It's going to make them feel more confident when they work with customers. So I think we're going to start to really see those things come together in ways that keep associates happy in their jobs, that make customers and associates. You think today when a customer and a sales associate has a conversation, that is dark data. It goes away. And there's some really valuable information in there. So I think in the future, when you think about conversational commerce capabilities, we'll capture that data, and finally retailers will be able to deliver on that promise of personalization that they've been really going after for years. So I'm excited because I think as a shopper, our experiences are going to be elevated. It's just going to happen. As a retailer, our ability to learn more about you and use that with your permission to make your future shopping experiences better is finally going to happen. And that frontline worker, who's been so underserved for so many years as a persona is going to be happy doing their jobs because they're going to have these incredible digital tools in their hands or in their ear that are going to bring that information that they need and just help them get through their day, just like we are every day in the office. So I'm excited by, about how it really is going to raise the ceiling for everybody, but also raise the floor for everybody. So I think that's really exciting.
Do you think, I mean, you touched on a really important point, and I don't know how many because just going back to the perplexity or search, so many, I mean, when Alexa came out, people were like, oh, this is fantastic, until and a couple of US retailers, large ones, realized that all of those search terms in voice, they had no idea. They had absolutely zero idea what people were searching for. And it feels like people or retailers haven't woken up to the fact that, yes, there's lots of great platforms out there, but that data isn't yours. You're not going to be able to get context on that. And I remember from years gone by, Microsoft was really sort of, it's your data. You get access to all of that. We don't do anything. We just give you the capability. Is that still the case? Is that like, because it's such a fundamental point.
Yeah, definitely. Like, we're not training our models at one customer and taking them to another. I always say each instance of AI is kind of like your own child that you're raising with your data.
Got you.
And that stays.
But it's a really important point. I think it's so important.
Yeah, we definitely, obviously, having like retailers must have a trusting relationship with their customers. We need to do the same. So when we talk about our AI that runs in Azure, that is being utilized by retailers to build conversational commerce experiences or build frontline worker experiences, that is all trained on the retailer's data. That is their unique first-party strategic advantage. So obviously that stays there. So every platform is unique. Just like today, when a customer runs on Azure, that data is not commingled with any other customers that run on Azure. It's very walled off that way. It's critical.
Yeah, no, okay, it's good to hear, because I think that's something that people are sleepwalking into, if I'm honest,
Well, on that point, though, I would say what is really becoming critical is security. Because if you think about democratizing data and putting it into the hands of folks that might not normally have it, but you're doing it because it's going to bring value, it's going to save money and time, it's going to allow for new experiences, how you secure that data is now more critical than ever, because obviously we know when there's a trust break between a data breach at a retailer, it takes many years for trust to be built back. So we always talk a lot about security as well. Or I always say, get your chief information security officer involved early and often when you're doing AI use cases, because you want to make sure that everything you do is still within the guise of like secure and responsible AI, which is the other bookend of that, is using this capability in a responsible way that make it your customers feel confident. It doesn't violate privacy laws. So all of that is critical to all of these use cases as well. It's foundational, honestly.
I think, well, I mean, look, we've had so many public cases recently in the UK with two major retailers having outages. I mean, it's like, who hasn't had a security or cyber event? I guess it gets overlooked because people sort of almost think that the CISO's taking care of it, where, it's a culture thing as well, right? You need everyone on the same page.
Yeah.
But in this world of privacy, GDPR and everything else, I think that there's a whole nother, how are you protecting the sort of critical data that you're gathering on your customers? No one wants to know that their AI data set has been stolen. I think that's another level from your credit card.
Yeah.
But again, that's like, we're getting into, I think that's a little bit further down the line, but people need to be aware of it. In terms of where you are going to be focused on for the rest of the year, Is that, because obviously Microsoft again operates in, 4 or 5 different product areas, right? Cloud, security, teams, what a workforce employment. What are the things that you're going to be like? How is the rest of 2025 going to be for you?
I'd say we're seeing this adoption of agentic AI. I mean, this is going to, as I said earlier, is helping our customers think about natural places to adopt. And I think, marketing content creation is a great example. I talked about that earlier. I think about business analysts, the merchandising and the inventory management sides of the world. I remember, my days at Gap, every Monday morning, our inventory folks would come in, our merchants would come in. They'd spent 4 hours kind of diagnosing the business. And that was about 20 people doing that, right? So there was like 80 hours, 80 human hours every Monday diagnosing the business. And then in the afternoon, my leadership team and I, there's 5 of us, we would decide what we were going to do about the business in the course of an hour. And I think about the imbalance, 80 hours spending diagnosing, 5 hours spending making strategic business decisions. That's an imbalance, right? We need to unlock more of that 80 and shift it to more strategic thinking. And that is where agentic is going to make a real impact. Maybe those 80 hours become 20 hours, because over the weekend, agents have been diagnosing the business. So when the merchandising team comes in on Monday morning, the insights are ready. Some recommendations are already teed up. And maybe even in the future of autonomous, the first draft of the marketing brief has already been written on the promo that needs to run as a result of last week's business. Like, imagine that happening and being kind of ready on the desktop Monday morning. And that is really game changing when you think about running your retail business.
Yeah, I mean, you touch on a this isn't going to be a self promotion about a book, but I, like many people, I've written a book about the future of retail. Okay. But I talk about the store being your signal generator, right? So all of these signals that the store's generating that you then need to respond to, whether that's a TikTok trend that has been, going up and up and up, and if you don't tap into it, or if it's a Netflix movie that has, I don't know, blown people away and people want that jumper in that color. Yep. Those signals are currently, again, we're going to, that people are trying to sort of chip away at those types of problems. Yep. But the store is a data center. There's petabytes of data that's going to come out of that store. And how do you tap into it? So I think
the signal story is brilliant, because it's also a data problem, right? So in a conversational, right, traditional store signal sits in rows and columns. Right?
Yeah, that's it.
A TikTok video is an unstructured data source. An Instagram feed is an unstructured data source. So something that's trending on a social platform is mostly unstructured data. So really, it's how do you take both? How do you take the traditional structured data from the store? And by the way, you multiply that by SKU count, by region, by store, right? By how many countries you operate in, plus all the unstructured data. And how do you take all of that signal and turn that into some recommendations on what you should do next? Whether that's what you should be buying next year because there's a trend that's emerging that you want to make sure you capture on, or whether it's responding to out of stocks in a location based on a significant change in weather. And all of that signal and resiliency is where generative AI, agentic AI is going to play a role. It's you just can't throw enough humans at it. It's just impossible. It's costly. It's slow. It's filled with bias. Like, this is where I think we're going to see such of this really step function changes. Retailers will finally be able to kind of take all that data signal back in, even from your commerce, like all that data exhaust that comes from all the clicks and the movement, and really make sense of it in real time and start to act on it in real time. And that's going to be really incredible to watch.
Where is mine? Where's Mike? I know Microsoft has the biggest presence at NRF, which is sort of, I don't know. Are you anywhere else throughout the year? Is Microsoft, are you at any other events, or is there anywhere else people could sort of definitely have a conversation?
So retail, NRF in New York is definitely a big one. NRF Asia, we have a presence there in June.
Okay, cool.
Those who are going to be there would definitely be there.
Talking on stage.
Yeah. And then we also, on the consumer goods side of the business, we go to the Consumer Goods Forum every year and present. And then this year, I'll be at Cannes because a lot of our customers, marketers go to Cannes, and we have some events planned around that, specifically around how generative agentic AI is transforming the marketing room of the house.
That's fantastic. Well, Keith, thank you so much for giving up some time to speak to us. It's probably early in the morning for you there, right?
Not so bad.
Is it not?
Not so bad.
Okay, that's wonderful.
Not bad at all. And thank you, Alex. It's just a pleasure always to chat with you. I've always liked chatting with you. We've never had a problem talking. So in 6 months, let's do it again, because a lot will change, as we know, and we can give an update.
Well, hopefully, maybe joking aside, at NRF 2026.
Would love to.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you.